Hello, and welcome to She Leads Biotech, the podcast that celebrates women leaders in the bioscience space. I'm your host, Sharon Cox, CEO and Managing Director of CNA International, based right here in New York. And each week I'll be talking to women leaders about their work, their triumphs and challenges, providing invaluable insight into how women can unlock their superpowers and succeed on their own terms. So whether you're navigating your own career path in bioscience or you're passionate about science and innovation, I hope you're empowered and inspired by each episode. My guest today has built her career at the intersection of engineering, business, and purpose. With a PhD in engineering management and a foundation in biomedical engineering, she began on the manufacturing floor and rose through the ranks to lead global R&D and clinical teams. But her path wasn't linear. It included founding and selling companies, pioneering an academic biomedical program in her home country of Costa Rica, and mentoring countless women along the way. A first in many rooms, she's often led by ignoring the limitations others tried to place on her. Her leadership is grounded in authenticity, curiosity, and grit. She's currently spearheading a bold restructuring at a medtech company with breakthrough technology straight out of Harvard, shaping a future that's inclusive, impactful, and full of potential. So please welcome President and CEO of Cytrellis Biosystems, Denise Dajles. Hey Denise, how are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Yes, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too.
There we go, another day. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time out to spend some time with us. I know that must be 6 months now into your exciting journey as the president at Cytrellis.
Yeah, almost 6. Yeah, in June 1st will be my 6-month anniversary.
6 months. I look forward to having a little chat about that. But tell me, how did it all start for you? Because you've got a really interesting journey. Where did it start?
Yeah, curiosity, I think, is where it all started. I was always the child that asks too many questions, maybe, or the one that wants to know it all and wants to be involved everywhere. And I think that's how my career started, just by curiosity. I have a very technical background, but I've been involved in businesses since I was a child, in like family businesses, and trying to find that intersection between business and science has always been my passion. And I think when I was a child, at some point I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't really want to be a doctor, didn't really want to be treating the patients, but I found the whole thing fascinating. And that's how I got into this world of medical devices, right? Because I really wanted to impact people's lives through devices, through science, but then having the business perspective of it as well.
But you were an engineer, right? By trade, is that?
Correct. So I have a bachelor's and a master's in biomedical engineering and a PhD in engineering management. So yes, an engineer by training.
Right. And then, did you study in the US or were you studying in Costa Rica?
No, I studied in the US. I was born and raised in Costa Rica, and I came to the US for school. Yeah, been back and forth ever since. But yeah, I think that's one of the great things that the US offers, right? Which is that excellent education and that capability. If you work really hard and you're smart, you can really grow even when you were not born here.
Right. And so you finished your education. Where did you take your biomedical degree, and what did you do with it?
Yeah, and I have a really interesting story. I've done a little bit of everything. Actually, when I graduated with my master's, I went back home to Costa Rica, and I really wanted to work on medical devices. So I got my first job in medical devices in the manufacturing floor. So actually, as production supervisor, just supervising the manufacturing of products before they went out to patients, right? So I really was in the plastic and reconstructive surgery world. So I was working with breast implants, tissue expanders, and other types of devices. And I knew how to make them from scratch, right? Because I was there on the manufacturing floor. I did operations for a while, from manufacturing to process engineering to product engineering. And then I realized that even though I was good at that technical operating side, it was not really my passion. And I left industry and started a company on something completely unrelated, nothing to do with medical
Yes,
devices.
you do.
Actually, in construction, which is, I just think I liked the challenges and the worlds outside of my own, but also started working in academia on medical devices, on brain computer interfaces, teaching. At that time, we called it machine learning, pattern recognition. Now it's AI, but the same concept. And so because I didn't want to lose that connection with the medical device world. So I was working in academia part-time, and then I was running my company. 8 years into running it very successfully, I woke up one day and told my husband, the only thing this company is giving me is money, but I hate it. I don't enjoy it. I'm miserable. He's like, well, sell it and do something else. So I sold it, and I decided I was going to stay part-time in academia and be a full-time mom. I had 2 really young children at the time. 3 months went by and I was driving everybody crazy.
Yeah.
My kids were speaking multiple languages. They're doing all these amazing things, but they're like, when are you getting out of the house a little bit more? So I went more into academia. I started another company that my brother still runs. It's in our family still, but I went full time into academia, very heavy, not only on teaching, but on research. I actually started the whole biomedical engineering program in Costa Rica, and got very involved in how to get that up and running, and consulting with some medical device companies, until I decided to go back into industry to lead R&D. So I went back into industry, and that's what also brought me back to the US, and leading very large R&D teams and clinical teams. And that's how I got back into industry and eventually became COO of a company leading manufacturing and supply chain, but also R&D, clinical, regulatory, working very closely with the FDA. And I think what really set me apart, and what's brought me to now my CEO role, I call it speaking multiple languages, which, literally, the Spanish, English, but the technical language, the clinical language, and the business language. So being able to speak to a physician, understand what they want, translate it to engineers and scientists so they can do the work, and then sell it to investors, right? So they will fund it. So I think that has really allowed me to grow into different disciplines within the industry.
Grow or develop as a woman in these industries, because all the things you've talked about, biomedical engineering, production, manufacturing, construction,
men's world,
very much a man's world. You're not a manly man woman at all by any stretch of the imagination. How did you fit into that world? How did you get on in that world?
Yeah, and it's always been the case. I've always been the only woman in the room, or the only woman in I was the first woman to be a professor leading an engineering lab in an electrical engineering department. I was always the first to. And honestly, I think what really got me through was my naivety. I was very naive. I come from a house, I have one brother. It's just the two of us. My dad is an engineer. And the one that was always interested in what he was doing was me. My brother was never interested. For my dad, it was normal. Then, okay, you want to go? My dad has a construction company. Say, do you want to come to the sites with me? And in my house, there was never that bias. So when I got to college and I was sitting on my first circuits class, and a classmate who tapped my shoulder and told me, this is the circuits class. Are you in the right place? But I was so naive that I did not understand what he meant. It took me years to understand what he meant, right? And I was like, yeah, are you? Isn't this? And I gave him like the class numbers, like, this is class, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay. We were 5 women in a class of 120. And as you well said, some of the other women did not want to stand out as women, right? And I honestly think he was genuinely concerned about me. He genuinely thought I was in the wrong place. but I just didn't take it too hard. And I think I've just never thought too much about it. And I think that has been the key to not hold me back. And I've had many incidences in my life. And I just keep pushing. And when I started teaching, they would look at me and say, you're the professor? I was like, yeah, just wait. Give me 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, you can walk out after 20 minutes if I'm not saying anything that's of any
Exactly.
interest to you.
Exactly. So I think I've just never gave it too much thought. I think we set our own limits, right? And when you think too much about it, you just don't do it. But I've had incidences even recently, right? Where a couple of years ago when I started leading a big operations team and they're like, well, you're gonna have to be patient with us. We're not used to having a woman, especially a young woman, tell us what to do. And I'm like, well, you have two options. You get used to it really, really fast, or here's the door, right? So I think it's just not as just it started with me with just being naive and not understanding what they meant. And it just evolved into just not caring and just showing them that I can do it. I always said I would hate to think that I got the opportunities that I got because I was a woman, and I got them because I was the most capable person for the job. And so having that confidence that you know what you're doing, right? And just believing in yourself. But I have also been very aware that I've been privileged, right? That I was raised in a certain way and that I had a really strong mom who's worked every single day of her life and that showed me that I could do whatever I wanted. My parents never told me what to study. My parents never told me who to marry. My parents were never biased in that sense. So I do understand my responsibility, especially coming from a Latin American culture where it's still very patriarchal, right? To show women what they can do, because it's really hard to aspire to be something you've never seen.
For Latino women, and if I've got this right, less than 2% of Latin women are in medtech C-suite positions.
I think last I heard it was less than 1%.
Gosh, right,
But
okay.
it could be 2% now, right? Even if we
Let's
go,
hope it's gone up a bit.
but even if you think broader, right? I think it's like 10% overall women in like C-level positions in publicly traded companies. And I'm not a big believer in quotas because I think the right person for the job should get the job. I just think we need to be more empowered. And I do feel like we as women, and it's been a process for me to we need to allow ourselves and forgive ourselves to do a lot of the things that we want to do, right? When my kids were little, I remember constantly feeling torn. And am I at the birthday party with the kids or am I at work, right? And when my daughter was maybe around 6 and I was traveling a lot for work and I went to pick her up for her ballet from her ballet class and I hear her, she had not seen me. I hear her talking with some of her friends, right? And she's like, oh, my mom is famous. She was just in Paris giving a presentation at a conference and she was like bragging to these kids. And I went back home and I told my husband, you know what? I give myself such a hard time because I'm traveling and always trying to figure out a way to get back. And she actually feels proud of me, right? So it's I think we set our own limits. I have a super supportive husband. It took me a while to say, you know what? It's fine if he's the one that picks up the kids. It's fine if he's the one that takes them. He wants to do it. And why would I feel bad about it? So I think it's also learning how to forgive ourselves and how to put our priorities in place. And when I'm with my family, I'm with my family. But
Yep.
when I'm at work, I'm at work.
And it is very much that putting the times in boxes. I had the same situation when my daughter was small. I was running 5 or 6 offices of a company and was all over the place. And I was very lucky. My husband, he actually gave up his job, went self-employed so that he could work in between things that she needed. Bless him, at the school gates and all the mums sort of, you're here, and vilified me. I mean, whenever
Absolutely.
I did turn up somewhere, the mothers of the area would be looking at me like I was Cruella de Vil that had come to drag her child away. But my daughter grew up very, level-headed. Well, I think she's 30 odd now, so I think she's got it sorted and understood, and was proud of me. I really felt that at that time. So you're obviously doing a service to your daughter as well. And to you, you've got 2 children, right?
Yeah, I have a son.
Yep. So your son and your daughter
son.
learning this, how to make their way in the world without having to compromise their standards or anything.
I'd like to think that my kids will never have to even think twice about a bias because they've grown up in a world that's just different. And I feel like in my house we've shown that, right? But the other day I received a call from school, from my son's school. My husband's name is Alex, so it can be used for women too, right? He's usually the one that sends emails and
Yeah.
he's usually the one that picks them up. So they call me and say, is this Gabriel's mom? And I was like, yes. Hello, Mrs. Alex. They immediately assumed Alex was the mom, right? And I was like, well, Alex is my husband. My name is Denise, but yes, what you're asking me is correct. So I think we've gone a long way for those of us like you and I, right, that have really created environments in our families. But I think that the world still needs to just get rid of those biases, right? This is a shared responsibility. It's not more of a mom's responsibility than a dad's responsibility, or the grandparents if they're willing to help, or whatever it is, right? And why are we going to put those biases in the children when they just don't have them to begin with?
Your success has been really due to the naivety of the biases. So it's almost like going, you walk into the room, I'm supposed to be here, not almost seeking permission or
Exactly.
questioning whether or not, and we do it as women, unfortunately. Should I be here? Is this the right room for me? And I think if you do kind of go into it in that bullish way, that's like, well, surely everybody knows I'm supposed to be here, right?
And why not? Like, why not? I tell my daughter, because my daughter is a little bit, it's not like me, right? I just go for it. My daughter's a little bit more shy. And I always tell her, like, first day of school and she's nervous, it's like, you just have to think I'm the queen of the world. Everybody wants to be with me. Everybody wants to look at me, and just go with that attitude, right? And I think that has also helped me not only to not feel like the only, like, why am I a woman and I'm doing this, but it has also helped me grow into different areas, right? I was sometimes even questioned by, why do you ask questions? Like if you're in a leadership meeting, why do you start getting involved in areas that are not in your lane? And I'm like, well, because I feel that if I have a question, I'll just ask it, right? And if that doesn't make sense, like that's how I got very involved into finance and other areas. I'm really good with math. I'm really good with numbers. And sometimes they were saying things like, wait, that doesn't add up to me. Can you explain that? And they were like, well, you're not in finance, why do you care? It's like, well, I just want to understand it, right? And I think that not staying in my lane, actually being a broader mindset and really trying to understand all the different areas, maybe because of that same naivety that I did not feel like it was not my place to speak up, has helped me grow and learn and just feel like I need to understand the business as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah, I congratulate. And you've been very heavily involved in mentorship of women as well, haven't you? Tell me about that.
So I do think that one of the things that has been extremely positive in my life is having the right mentors in my life. And I've always sought out mentors, and they haven't all been women, right? Actually, they've been mostly men. And I always try to surround myself with people that I find interesting, or that I find we can have a lot in common, or that I can ask a question. And what has surprised me is that when I've asked them, they usually say yes, right? When it's somebody really accomplished or somebody you really look up to, if I just send them a LinkedIn message or an email, I said, hey, I would really like a conversation. I like what you've done. I would like to learn. They usually say yes. So that actually opened an idea in my mind, which is people usually are just too afraid to ask the question, and they need that help. So it started when I was in academia, and we called it a Big Sisters program. So it was for women coming into the engineering program, and they would have a big sister within like seniors or juniors or seniors within the program that would almost mentor these younger sisters and help them through. Then we expanded it, and we brought people from industry to be the big sisters of the seniors and help them prepare for an interview, help them prepare for their first job, what to expect out of college. I was also leading the WE program, the Women in Engineering program, and trying to bring, that was more focused on how do we get little girls and women in college to have aspired to do more. Right. But then when I went back to industry, we started a program that we called Femtor at the time, which was female mentorship. And we actually got nominations from the company, and all of the executive women on the company actually not only femtored one or two women that had high potential within the company. But I think more than mentorship is just that sponsorship, right? Having someone that opens the door for you, that say, hey, why don't you come and present? Why don't you come and listen in? And I've continued doing it, I would say, informally. And all the time I have women that reach out to me, and sometimes they just come and sit down in my office for a day or so, just hear what my day looks like, or just if they have to give like a big presentation, say, can I practice with you? I tell them all the time, I practice. Stand in front of a mirror and I practice, or I sit down with my husband and I have him listen to me over and over again, right? And sometimes I have my peers that are the ones that I call, or people that I trust now that I call, like, hey, I have this big presentation. What do you think of this, and that? So just opening those spaces, I think, are formally and informally, I think, bring a lot of value.
Yeah, definitely. So 6 months in at Cytrellis,
Yes.
Tell me what that journey's been like.
Yeah, so it was a big challenge because I'm leading a restructuring of a company. So I came into a company that was going to do a relaunch, not only of the product, but almost of the company, right? So I had to restructure the team, find out who were the right fit, what were the areas we were going to focus, and work almost like rolling up your sleeves, very startup mode, because even though we are commercial, I like that startup environment. So going back to that startup mode, getting super involved, rebuilding, restructuring, hiring new leadership, hiring new collaborators, working with our investors, working with our board, and working with our customers. So it's been a very fun journey because I'm constantly shifting gears towards what I'm focusing on. A lot of focus on the customers. So I think that's my biggest thing right now is how do I make sure that our customers know who I am, feel free to reach out to me, feel close to us. But then the second thing is, most importantly, restructuring the company, but creating a culture where not only people want to work for us, but they asked me the other day, an investor asked me, in 3 years from now, what are you going to be the most proud of? So I'm going to be most proud of that we created an all-star team where everybody was aligned. There was no drama, no backstabbing, just a lot of hard work, people working together, redefining a business model, and creating a company that can deliver way more than anybody thought it could. And it's not going to be me, it's a team effort, right? Just setting up the right team and making sure that everybody is aligned. And as I brought a lot of female leadership to the company, and some of them were telling me, well, we're going to show the men how it's done.
Okay. That's definitely a story to follow, I think, for the podcast. Absolutely. Maybe we should have one dedicated to the women of Cytrellis.
That would be outstanding. So we have our new VP of commercial, our VP of clinical, most of our area directors, our clinical directors. So yeah, an outstanding group of people.
Well, I look forward to following their success. Just for me, because I don't know too much, what does Cytrellis do?
Yeah, so we are in the aesthetic space, and we commercialize a technology that came out of Harvard that removes skin without surgery and without scars. So as we age, or if we gain weight and then lose weight, our skin sags, right? And we have the folds here, or we have below the eyes, or the underskins, or the elbows, or the knees, or
okay, Denise.
So this is a technology that comes in with little hollow needles. It removes very little cores of skin, almost like coring an apple, but in a tiny way. And you remove little cores of skin, up to 8% of the skin in one treatment. So it is quite significant.
Wow.
But each one of those cores are below the threshold of scarring. So they will close without scarring, and they close really, really quickly. Within maybe a week, you look completely as if nothing had happened, but just better. So you remove a lot of that sagging skin, and also the body starts a healing reaction to close those tiny little holes and regenerates collagen and just creates a more tighter, rejuvenated look. Okay. On top of removing that sagging skin. So very interesting technology. It has our indication is for the reduction of wrinkles in the face, but we're also working very, very hard on expanding that indication to other cosmetic areas, like the sagging skin, for example, in other areas of the body, but also more therapeutic indications, because we know it works really well for scars, like burn scars or acne scars. So we're working towards increasing those indications.
Excellent. Well, if you need any more clinical trial volunteers,
perfect. I'll let
sign
you know.
me up. Okay, I'll be there.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with that at all. So that's fascinating. And that was exactly what I was going to ask you. Obviously, there's the cosmetic side of it, but how do you see this benefiting on the therapeutic side? And obviously, the obvious is scarring from whatever that may happen that would give hope to people who are suffering in that way.
Correct. And in the future, we see a lot of potential additional pathways. We actually own over 100 patents that cover some of those indications. But when we think about the future, right, you think about biopsies. So if you need to do a biopsy, do you really need to go with a scalpel and get the skin out? Or can you remove those cores and then analyze those cores and see what we're getting there? Or drug delivery, you're creating channels through the dermis, right? So can you use those channels to deliver something therapeutic to it? So we do see a lot of opportunity with the technology. Hair transplantation is done in a similar fashion. So can we use it for the same type of fashion? So yeah, a lot of opportunity there. Customers are mostly plastic surgeons and dermatologists. So those are our two niches where we go. We do have some other types of physicians involved, but this is an MD product.
Right. And what does the future look like for you? What do you see 5 years? I'll be one of your investors. What are you seeing in 5 years' time once you've got all your team and everything together?
Absolutely. I think right now, the biggest priority and what we will be extremely happy about in 5 years is that we're growing our customer base, but we're also growing the way practices use the system. So my goal is that every practice that gets an ELACOR really maximizes its potential. We have practices that do 1 or 2 procedures a day, right? So I want to see that all around, treating as many areas in the body and as many indications as possible, right? And see those patients that maybe got it in the face come back once it's cleared for the body and use it in the body. Maybe somebody has a scar that wants to get treated. So I really want to maximize the potential. And I think if we can show that this is a tool that adds a lot of value to the practices and that they can get a lot of utilization out of it and that we can broaden the indication as much as possible, that's what I will consider success. And then the other big area of focus is that geographical expansion, right? We are right now highly focused on the US, but of course the global market is our next step of where we're going to position this.
So there's 1 or 2 areas that you've still got to explore there. Easy peasy. Absolutely. So encompassing all of that, what advice would you give to somebody who doesn't have your naivety in how they approach something? Absolutely. What advice would you have to people looking to come through and who are aspiring to be part of the C-suite and CEO of a company at one time? What would your advice to them be?
I always tell them, first of all, find mentors around you. Find people that can help you. Find people that not only that you like them, that you believe in them, that you admire them, but people that believe in you. Right. I've had, I think, a lot of opportunities because I had so many people that believed in me more than what I believed in myself. Right. And they just pushed me to it and gave me opportunities. So that's the first one. And the second one, which I think is probably the most important one, is don't be afraid to take those opportunities. Like how many times I got into situations where I had no idea how I was going to make it happen. Right. I felt like I didn't know enough. But I just said yes. But it's not just saying yes. It's saying yes and then go prepare yourself, right? When I started in business in areas that were completely outside of my scope, I would say yes, but then I would go read and study and ask and listen and prepare myself to succeed. I like that order. Say yes, prepare yourself, deliver. Don't wait until you feel you know it all to say yes and then get it done. So I would say find people that believe in you, that will push you, that will help you get the opportunities, but then be open to saying yes to the opportunities and preparing yourself to be successful at them.
Yeah, you got to be prepared to put in the work, haven't you? When you say
Absolutely.
You say yes, you've got to then back that up by being prepared to put the work in.
Absolutely.
Rather than just expecting that because you've said yes to something, it's all going to all going to come together. That's the quickest way to it being a failure than anything else, right?
Absolutely. I think one differentiator that has made a difference in my life, and I like to study, right? I like to prepare myself. I like to know everything about something so I feel that I can answer to it. And I think that people appreciate that.
Yes.
Right? When I talk to a physician and I understand what they're doing and I can speak their language and I can talk in their terms, they appreciate it, right? And so I think you have to be willing to put in the work. I always tell everybody it's not easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. So just enjoy it, right? Be willing to do it and enjoy it, because it doesn't come easy. I have a lot of people that say, oh, she's lucky, right? She's so lucky. Look where she is. And I tell my husband, even people that I know, it's like they wouldn't want my life. Right?
Yep.
Because the amount of work that I put into it, the amount of work that has been to get where I am, just to continue growing, you just have to be willing to do it. And I think that's the big difference between the people that really keep growing versus the people that are just complacent and stay where they are, which is totally fine, right? If they're happy with what they are. But it's not luck. It does take a little bit of luck, yes, but it's not luck necessarily what keeps you there. Maybe it gets you there, but doesn't keep you there. And it's hard work. It's willingness to do things outside of your comfort zone. It's willingness to take that red eye, even though you're exhausted, and willingness to accept that this is the path that you choose to do, and it takes hard work.
The sacrifices that you have to make along the way as well, I think, is being prepared.
Absolutely.
What level of sacrifice am I prepared to make in order to achieve the outcome that I want to achieve? And I think
absolutely,
a number of people that I've spoken to over the years, that's always been the biggest area. Is that, I'd love to do it. It would be great to do it. I'd have to sacrifice this or that. Oh, I don't know that. And I think that's something really important to think through before you say yes. Probably, what am I prepared to do? When I say yes to this, what am I prepared to do to make it happen?
Absolutely. And another thing that I think is really important is being authentic. I hear a lot, oh, you should get your hair up more often. You should do this. You should do that. You should wear more executive clothes. You should, right? And I'm like, I'm an engineer. That's who I am. But I think I've gotten to a point where people know I'm authentic. So they feel that they can connect with me, right? And I think I give a lot of credit. I have an outstanding executive coach, Sabina Nawaz, and she was very, very interested. Just get people to know who you are. And once they know who you are, they actually appreciate it. I now even tell my team, this is how I like to work. Yes, I ask a lot of questions. I'm not questioning your work. I'm questioning so I can understand it. And I've come to accept my authentic me, the authentic me that likes to wear tennis shoes, and the authentic me that goes to a meeting wearing jeans, and it's totally fine, because if I wear a fancy dress, it's not who I am. So I think just accepting the authentic you instead of trying to fall into the stereotypes of who people expect you to be.
I did see, it was funny. I was in New York City last week, and there was a woman at a construction, very, very close to a construction site, who was in almost like an evening gown. It was a beautiful cocktail dress, with steel toe boots and a hard hat. It's New York, so whatever, it could be anybody. But I really wanted to know. So I stopped her and asked her. She basically said, oh, it's just so annoying. I was at a function. Something happened on the site. I'm on my way to the site to sort it out. And the hat and the boots are non-negotiable. You have to wear them there, but I didn't have time to change. And I was like, you go, girl. I'm so impressed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I think we just have to own it. The first time I went to a financial conference, these investor conferences, and I went to present. Like, I do like wearing a dress from time to time, right? Don't get me wrong. So I had this nice dress and, long sleeved. It was below the neck. It was very appropriate. So I wore it. And what I found out, I think actually in engineering, we've advanced more than in the investment world and the finance world. There were mostly men, and the few women that were there were wearing a black pantsuit with a black jacket and a white shirt underneath. And I felt at the beginning, I felt a little bit like a fish out of the water. Right? And it's like, oh, okay, I'm the only person in this 1,000 people conference wearing a dress, but that's fine. I went on stage, I gave my presentation, whatever. I was walking afterwards, and somebody told me, hey, Denise. And I was like, great talk. And I was like, hello, do I know? He's like, no, but I recognized you for the dress. I was like, oh, okay, there you go. It paid off.
Yeah, and it's all about being authentic, isn't it? That's the key thing.
Absolutely. I think being authentic, being who you are, goes a long way, because it's so hard to just pretend being something you're not.
And you can only pretend for so long.
For so long.
And then it's even worse when somebody finds out that that's not really who you are or what you're about in the first place. Denise, I just so appreciate the time that you've taken. I can't believe how quickly that time has gone by. And I know that you have a busy day ahead of you. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your story. And I'm dead serious about the trials, or put me in touch with a good dermatologist. And I look forward to seeing the continued success of Cytrellis and of you as its presidency.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for having me, and just encourage anybody to reach out. I'm more than happy to at least give my perspective on any topic that you'd like to discuss.
I certainly will do that. Thank you. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. She Leads Biotech is brought to you by CNA International USA, a woman-owned boutique search firm based in New York. If you're looking to hire talent for your company or want support in achieving your career goals, please reach out to me at contact@cnaint.com. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And remember, the success of every woman should be an inspiration to another. So don't be afraid to share yours. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.